Hello, this is Heather Hornbeek. I'm presenting on my experience with transitioning from on campus teaching and now fully online teaching. So, for those of you who weren't here for the first report on how it's been going, I reported around midterms, when I had all of those projects graded and everything, and could evaluate how students were doing, excuse me, in the online platform versus the exact same course and the exact same assignments in the on campus version. So, for those of you who weren't there for that, I'll just kind of go over my structure with this particular class, interactive media, which is my main class or most frequent class that I teach. So, in this particular class, I have 9 modules. Which include some content projects, which I'll go over in a second, plus a final exam, which is comprehensive as far as software skills. They'll be doing the exact same kind of skills with a different idea. So each of these modules have one project. Some of them have one discussion, and we have 1 to 2 exercises, small exercises that they do, like how to clone an object out in Photoshop or how to make a text wrap in InDesign. And then a lot of times I'll have a quiz regarding a video that doesn't necessarily go with the project, but I want to make sure that they know the content of what I'm talking about. And I do have a very, I've learned I have a unique late work policy that a lot of professors have been interested in. So I have a late work policy that I accept any late work up to a certain date. For this semester, it was right before Thanksgiving, just to give me enough time to grade everything. They can turn any student can turn anything late with a 7% penalty, so that equals around a letter grade. And some professors at the last session asked how often that is used, and I would say maybe 2 to 3% of students will take advantage of this. Um, of this availability. Most students realize that 7% is quite a bit, and so they want to make sure that they turn everything in on time, but I want to make sure that it just it relieves some conversations between me and the students as far as like, this and that happened and life happened and will you give me an extension? This is kind of my, policy for that extension. That way we can focus on the work and not necessarily when it's turned in. So all the students in my online class, they are required to log in once per week, and I have multiple time options for that. So for this semester, I have as many as 8 time options for interactive media. I have 2 sections, so I wanted to make sure that everyone was had availability to log in and show me their work. So this time that we log in, this is a time for me to not, it's not a time for me to lecture or instruct. All of those lectures and instructions are pre-recorded, which I'll talk about in a second. But this is a time for the students to come and show me what they've been working on, so I can give them feedback as they are working on their project rather than later. And it actually relieves a lot of anxiety for a lot of them. So they know, especially the students that are really particular and how well they do in the course, it kind of relieves them as far as they get affirmation while they're working rather than, just kind of crossing their fingers that they did it right. Um, and as well as I'm on campus 3 times per semester. So I'm on campus the first week of classes to get everyone started and acquainted with the structure of the class. And I'm on campus during advising week, so the week before registration, which occurs around a little bit after midterms. And that way advisees can have the option to meet with me in person, and I actually I try to work the schedule to where I can meet with all my students in person to help them along getting started with their website in interactive media. And then I'm on campus the last week of the semester during finals, which, especially in May, there's a ton of academic events going on, so I want to be there for those. Um, so some things that I've noticed since transitioning from on campus to online is that because I have the flexibility of having all of my lectures and instructions pre-recorded, all of the time that I spend with my students when we log in is for feedback and conversation. So there's a lot more interactivity and interactive going on. So I'm able to give more feedback. If someone's slacking, I can be like, kind of give them some encouragement to keep going. And for those who are doing really well, I can show off what they're doing to other students. So there's a lot more conversation going on between the students and I. And because I'm online, I'm elsewhere. I'm able to interview different professionals in the field and make connections outside of Wilmore in terms of internships and that kind of thing. Another really surprising thing that I've found doing online versus on campus is that I've had a lot of really personal discussion online compared to when I was on campus. And I think there's something about being virtual that allows the students to feel safer in a way. And especially with my relationships with male students, I've had one particular, actually two particular male students who, regularly have, up to 20-minute conversations about, outside of the classroom, just life in general and figuring out, how to pace yourselves and what they're going to do after college and, those kind of conversations that have been really, I think, hopefully very valuable to them and something that stuck out to me for sure. Another big thing that I've noticed is that when I'm on campus, we meet in the multimedia lab, and most students have their own computers, but because we have to meet in the multimedia lab, and may as well just not bring it and use the computers there because they are equipped with everything they need and really great equipment in that room. But since we're online and they have the flexibility of, logging in at the library or the STUs or their dorm rooms, I've seen lots of dorm rooms, they can, I think they're kind of indirectly encouraged to have their own computers and have the software loaded onto their computers, which I've noticed a huge difference anyway when students have their own computers with Adobe Creative Cloud loaded. I can tell a huge difference in their work, and I think it's because of the availability that they have. They can, work on things for 10 minutes before they go eat dinner and, that kind of thing. Whereas in the multimedia lab, you have to coordinate around all the class times, as well as you can't stay in there unless you have late night permission past 11:30. So I think I've noticed pretty early on that this is a big difference in my students, and I think this has kind of helped push them without requiring them to have their own software. It's kind of pushed them in that direction. So, and during the midterm week, I reported that there was at least a 3% increase in GPA so far within interactive media within the course, which is a pretty significant difference considering I haven't changed very much. In fact, as far as the instruction, I haven't changed very much, and the projects are the exact same. And as well as I've actually added some assignments like exercises and quizzes and discussions to the projects, whereas I had just projects within Discovery where you just turn in your project for that module and then discussions, exercises, and all of that. I didn't have quizzes. All of that happened during the classroom time. So, in a way, the students have double amount of assignments. However, their grade point average is higher, which is a big surprise. In some ways, and in some ways that I did expect that. Some challenges are I do feel a disconnect with my colleagues, especially with new programs here in the, being in discussion for new programs, and it takes a lot of intentionality to, email your colleagues and see what's going on and communicate in that way. So that's one challenge that I'm working on some solutions for. There's also a lack of organic conversation, both with colleagues and students. So, passing a student in the hallway who looks a little discouraged, there's none of that is happening. So there's a little more intentionality when I am online to ask how they're doing, if they need any help with anything, that kind of thing. I did have sort of a funny story that happened that week when I reported when I had my first presentation on this, about remembering names. So when you're on Zoom, it actually shows their names. And so when I was on campus, I obviously recognized them and I could remember all their work, but I could not remember their name because I was so spoiled with their names being at the bottom. So that's something that I've been trying to, since midterms, been, looking at their name and looking at their face. So that way when I'm on campus, I do recognize them and I can say their name. Accountability. Some of my students have actually, I've, kind of have conversations with them. Like, what do you think about this online thing? And a few of them are like, well, it's just, kind of hard with accountability. Like, not seeing you, just, walking down the hall or walking to the cafeteria or that kind of thing doesn't help me, feel pressure, kind of like a healthy pressure to work on their stuff. But I think it's interesting that the students who have mentioned that are all my best students. So I don't know if they just assume that they need that, but I think in some ways it's healthy for them to give themselves, self accountability when it comes to academics. So I have created a lot of videos, a lot of videos and a lot of audio, and I have some ideas on how I'm evolving with that and improving that. But so far, I've created over 100 videos and audio for my classes that I created over the summer and periodically throughout the semester. So this next semester is going to look really interesting because I have a lot less work in that way, creating all this content, and I can focus more on evolving this structure as well as spending more time on some other projects that I've had to put on pause. So one of the questions at the last session was how, if you were not teaching in MediaComm, how would you kind of translate what I'm doing to, maybe the arts and humanities or into science or some of the different subjects. And I have noticed a big difference in presenting our module with the assignment first. So as soon as we finish one project and one topic and move on to the other, I'm sure you guys have had experience, for those of you who teach, have experience where you get up in the classroom and you have this like perfect lecture prepared. You don't forget anything. Everything's really seamless. You have these really nice visuals. You have the energy. Everyone looks interested, and then you get finished with your instruction and you ask, does anybody have any questions? And the first person, that has a question raises their hand and asks some sort of question about the rubric in your project, which is so disappointing, I know, when you feel like you've just presented all this really amazing information, this cutting edge work that you're working on, and they are interested in, you explaining a line in the rubric. So that's an experience that I've had, and I immediately was, just thought I need to get in front of that. I need to get way ahead of what they're thinking so they can relax and actually be educated. So the one thing that I've tried to do is I present the assignment first. I go over the rubric. I explain, when I'm in class, I explain this is what's expected of you, and I'm going to help you. Like I'm going to explain how to do each one of these things. And so I still do that online, where when we meet, I just kind of present, like, here's the project, here's what we're working on, and here are all the resources to learn how to do this project. So I think just starting with presenting the assignment first, like, here's the paper that you will write, and we're going to talk about this specific topic for the next 3 weeks. So here's my advice to you as far as how to prepare for that project. So I wanted to show kind of this, how I have it structured now versus how I'm structuring the class next year. So I'm just using my first module, Adobe Photoshop, for all my examples. So you can see I have all these videos here. I actually just went to the description and Discovery and embedded all of these through YouTube. And so the students have all these videos to look at, as well as some inspiration, some examples of past students' work, and then some other links as well. Here's the assignment here's an exercise that I've included, here's the project that I've included, and then a quiz. So as I was working on this, I was looking at it and thinking I could probably simplify this even more, so it would be very clear what order the students needed to work on each video and each assignment. So I actually, this is the same module, and surprisingly it includes all of the same content that was in this previous one. So I've just recently read a book by Sal Khan. He's a really influential person within the online learning community, and I've just kind of adapted some things that he has done, including not showing your face in a lecture video and that kind of thing, because students will want to, just naturally look for emotions within people's faces. So I've tried to, eliminate having my face in the video unless I feel like it's necessary. And that's what our time online is really for that interaction. So I've kind of, did structure the videos a little bit different. And then in here, because of the simplicity, students can kind of follow the steps. So in this exercise here, they get started with, removing and including objects out of an image in Photoshop. So to let them know which video to watch first. Whereas here it's just, kind of like, well, I'm not sure which video to look at first. They're told, watch this video, step number 1. And then they can follow the steps here for the exercise. And here's a quiz where they watch this video and then complete the quiz. And then here is the project. So same thing, the steps are listed here. And the examples that I showed you that was in that big long list here are now in this simple list where look at the following examples for inspiration, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this way I can actually, although Discovery is really helpful for importing modules into the next semester and that kind of thing, I can actually copy and paste this entire module here, put it in document, same thing with all of these, and have an entire classroom, have an entire course within like a 10-page document, because all of these are leading to videos and lectures stored elsewhere. So, yeah, I just got an alert that some people are waiting on me. So I have a class here soon. So that's kind of how I'm evolving how this is structured, and I think this will be really helpful for students. And for those students who would not watch this video first, they're now told to watch the video first, which will help them on their execution of their project. Another thing that I would like to really communicate even more is pace. So now that I have all of my content, most of my content ready, as far as all instruction, all the lectures, demonstrations, how to use software, that kind of thing, almost all of that is in place. I am going to encourage students to work ahead because they have that availability, whereas on campus they don't have the availability to work ahead. So I've given the opportunity for students to turn in late work, and now I can give the opportunity to students who are quicker to go ahead and skip ahead, because our online sessions are very customized and I meet with each one of them and give them one-on-one feedback. I'm able to do that. Another challenge that I don't really have any good ideas about yet, if you have any, are some inactive students. So both in classroom and on online, there are always students that, will turn in things here and there, won't show up to class very often. And then online, it's even worse, I believe. So I have maybe a couple of students this semester who I haven't seen at all. They haven't logged in at all. However, they've seen me and they've, attended the lecture. They've had opportunities to learn how to do the project. Through my videos, I haven't had any kind of interaction with them. I've had a little bit, I've had some through email and maybe one or two online sessions. But that's one thing that I would like to address. Maybe there's some support in that way on campus where some administration can reach out to them and see if we can keep them going in the course, or find another option for them. And I am going to take advantage of more video and audio recording for other reasons. So I just recently recorded some audio advice regarding internships. So for my advisees, I have a lot of the same questions. I'm sure you all do as well, where they're looking for an internship and they don't know where to look. And, there's a specific structure with MediaCom as far as the internship goes, in regards to the hours and who is over the internship and that kind of thing. So having an audio recording is really nice. So if a student has a question about that, I can just send them, a 10-minute audio clip on internships. And I actually just sent it to all my advisees recently. I can also do the same thing with video. I recorded myself an actual video of myself talking through being an advisor and what that means as far as what is expected of me and what I expect of them. So that way they, when freshmen come in, they can see me and they can see my face so they know what I look like, and they can kind of get an idea of when they do meet with me, what kind of questions that they need to come with, and how the advising system works as far as registering for classes next semester. So those are all great. I also do these kind of videos where I record my screen for like how to use OneDrive and how to use Discovery and that kind of thing. So that saves me a lot of time instructing on things that just takes like 5 or 10 minutes, but 5 or 10 minutes is extra is always good. So I have some conclusions, and just from my perspective, as well as some research I've done on online learning, specifically with the creative arts. Um, so I had a question from Dr. Wooster last time we met about expanding the amount of students within a classroom, like how many students a structure like this could handle. And I actually really thought about it because I've been asking myself the same question, because a lot of the time in the classroom is now being replaced by my videos. I'm able to do a lot more than I used to. So I really thought about how many students I feel like with my time and the amount of time that I want to spend with each student on a weekly basis, as well as grading how many students I could possibly handle. And I won't bore you with all the math all the data and all the math that I calculated, but I came to the conclusion of 26 students would be max amount of students in an online classroom, with me with me feeling like I can actually invest in them individually, meeting with them one-on-one. So that's considering that I have 4 classes per semester as well. Um, and then also I kind of I also looked at the data of how much time I spend on grading, because I spend, quite a bit more time grading than I used to, since I'm adding more exercises and that kind of thing, which don't take a ton of time because it's, more or less like a pass fail kind of thing, especially with the exercises. Um, but I looked at that in terms of if I could replace that grading time with a graduate student who could help me grade, replace that time with interacting with students. And I came up with, I think I could handle as many as 40 students if I had help with grading. So that's just something to consider as far as, I'm hoping that those numbers are exciting for administration as far as how many students a faculty member could reasonably handle without it feeling like we're just pushing the students through and everything is an automated experience, which I know Asbury is not interested in. We want to minister to the whole person. And I do see in the future of Asbury, I do see more faculty sharing the online classroom. So we do this in ID already, where we have, one professor in the beginning and another professor at the end. I believe other classes do the same thing in other departments, but I see it even implemented even more, where we have maybe one professor for 2 weeks in a 16-week course. So having, you could have as many as 8 professors in one class that teaches, 2 weeks worth on their perspective of a specific topic. So I see that being really valuable and interesting for the students as well. There's opportunities for review in this type of classroom. So I teach Interactive Media 1, and following Interactive Media 1, I teach Interactive Media 2. So there are opportunities for me to put in links for things that we learned in Interactive Media 1 in case that student, has had 2 years in between the 2 courses or just needed a refresh. In the in-person classroom on campus, that's not necessarily easy to do, because we want to keep moving them forward instead of constantly doing a review. But in the online classroom, that is certainly an option. As well as we can have opportunities in the online classroom for top students to lead the classroom. So like I said, I'm encouraging having top students work ahead. So working as much as 3 to 4 weeks ahead in the class, and that gives them flexibility to lead the classroom discussion because they've already worked in that project or they've already watched that video and written about what their reflection on a specific topic. So giving them, I've heard of a lot of students who have had leadership opportunities like that. I've heard that is very influential in their college career. Online course options lead to flexibility with other opportunities. So we know that in ID that is definitely true because they have come to Asbury already having all of this other stuff going on, including family and career jobs, that kind of thing. But one thing that traditional students can have more flexibility with is our internships and, traveling like the Paris trip and, those kind of opportunities that they wouldn't be able to do if they were required to be on campus. They can have a full semester of only online classes so they can go to this really incredible internship opportunity. I've seen in my research, I've seen that a lot of universities are uh, those students have better opportunities and better job offers and are more educated when they have opportunities like this, especially internships. I believe that Asbury should really encourage as many internships as a student would like to take. But thank you for just kind of hearing me out with how the traditional classroom on campus versus the online classroom is going. And I really am looking forward to discussion and questions and, how we can improve and evolve how Asbury specifically, how their mission fits within this structure.